want that every day. It's also the same V8 that they put in the old RCF, the GSF, and the bewitching LC500. That means 5.0 naturally aspirated liters and 8 thundering cylinders. But while the old ISF made just 414 horsepower and 371 torques, Lexus engineers massaged this one to make 474 horsepower and 395 torques. And that's almost as much as you get in an M3. Base model one, of course. And, well, we just listen to it! Now, while this may seem like a brand new ISF, it actually isn't. Lexus calls it the IS500 F Sport Performance, meaning it's just a cut above the standard IS and just a sliver below the ISF. And it's the first Lexus to be branded as an F Sport Performance model, whatever that means. But if you were just worried that Lexus took its standard IS and threw its absolutely phenomenal V8 under the hood and did nothing to the rest of the car, you'd actually be wrong. You see, this IS500 F Sport Performance still comes with the ISF's signature quad stacked exhaust tips at the rear bumper, Yamaha tuned rear dampers, sport tuned suspension, larger and beefier brakes, and of course a whole bunch of other aesthetic cues to separate the IS500 F Sport Performance from the rest of the lineup inside and out. So while this isn't a full-fledged ISF, this is pretty much the closest that you'll get to one today. And that's totally okay with me. And it even handles just as good, if not better than the old one, thanks to its revised and tweaked suspension. But there's one real reason as to why I'm actually absolutely enamored by this car. This engine is so exquisite since the day it came out in the original ISF. I've always thought that this is one of the best V8s, or just quite simply one of the best engines ever made. Full stop. I mean, you can put this engine in almost anything and it'll just make it a million times better. In fact, I think you could put this engine in a turd and it'll just polish it right up. Oh, I mean, besides the power it makes, it's just so smooth and so refined, and the power delivery is so linear, and the throttle response is just, oh, it's immediate! And when those valves open up, oh, it just sounds so freaking good. And because modern V8s today are just so muffled by their forced induction or their supercharging or their turbocharging, that automakers have to manipulate the engine soundtrack through the stereo system, which I still think is a little bit ridiculous, but in the ISF it's just, oh, pure unbridled V8 noises. I just want more of this! And it just, all the way up to its 7,200 RPM red line. And when you pull back on the right paddle forward shifts, it's just so eclectic. Even the downshifts are nice. Going down to second, oh. I honestly don't get why people just love supercharging or turbocharging so much. I mean, yes, the wave of power is a lot of fun and it just really sucks you into the seat, but there's just nothing like bringing out a naturally aspirated engine all the way up to its red line, especially when it's as high as this one. And that valve train by Yamaha, oh, it's just absolutely magical. I really don't care what anyone says about this car, about its lazy redesign, about it still being based off of the old model. And even though this isn't a full-fledged ISF, I don't care. This engine just makes the world so much better. Oh. It kind of reminds me of the old V8 and the E39 M5, and I'm sure a couple of other journalists have made that allusion before. But it's just so damn good. And yes, it might not be as sharp on the track as a BMW M3, and it's honestly not as fast as one either. This thing will do 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. The base M3 will slay it in less than 4. But I'll take the compromises just so I can have this! And yes, the 8-speed automatic, the direct shift transmission, can be a little bit frustrating at times. For instance, it takes a very long time to warm up and get up to temperature, so you can really make full use of those snappy upshifts and downshifts. For instance, if you try to use the paddles, when the car is still warming up, it's not going to respond to all your inputs almost immediately. But once it's up to temperature, it does its thing. But the best of all is that this is still a Lexus, meaning if you just take it out of Sport or Sport Plus mode, put it in normal mode, and you just sit back and relax, it becomes a comfortable, everyday, outrageously livable car that you could just get in and drive as long as you need to in full-on comfort, quietness. I mean, the suspension tuning and the ride and handling compromise is just way better than the old ISF. The ISF was an excellent handler, especially on the updated version when they finally gave it a physical helical limited slip differential. The first versions had, electronic brake torque vectoring where it had an open differential and it used the brakes to kind of mimic the effects of a physical differential. But on the old ISF, when they actually put the helical limited slip diff in it and they tweaked the suspension a little bit better, it just made it a million times better. It was still a bit rough, for an everyday car. It was very jittery, it was very stiff riding, and it just made going over bumps just kind of a pain in the butt. Yes, the engine was still fantastic, but again, there were still some compromises. But this is just so much more fine-tuned and so much more exquisite. It's such a perfect balance between fun and sport and performance and everyday usability. It kind of reminds me a little bit of old AMG models a bit. Yes, I know BMW M's can be livable with every day. They're comfortable, they're practical, as much as an M3 is. There's my radar detector going off. But I hate to say it, this is just more comfortable. And let's not forget, the IS500 is cheaper than a base M3. You get all this for almost 10 grand less. Yes, there are a few compromises. It's not as fast, and it's probably going to lose out to the M3 on a racetrack. But overall, with this engine, this car just knows how to steal your freaking heart. And on that note, this is Christian from TopSpeed, signing off.